So with that, we'll move to She was busy, so, yeah.
special board meeting of the Supervisors. Board has convened this evening to it's 6:30. She's rising. Anticipating the might make a comment. See, sure. This is see by the speaker. Showing that their hand to speak today and are issues with a picture of WebEx, please physically so that we may see you.
Thank you very much. And actually, I'm going to hand over again to Matt Boyette from administration, who is going to public hearing.
Matthew Boyette, Kings County Administration. This public hearing is being held in person and is also being broadcast via WebEx and YouTube teleconferencing formats. Due to COVID-19, in-person attendance in the board chambers is limited to 12 people at a time. Should the board chambers reach capacity, there is an overflow area in a nearby multi-purpose room where a live stream of the hearing will be available. Those who are in the overflow room and wish to make a public comment in person at the hearing will be allowed into the board chambers one at a time during the public comment section of the agenda. The board chambers is still at capacity after the comment is made, that the individual will need to return to the overflow. We appreciate the patience and understanding as we continue to work through the challenges of our team. Those joining us via YouTube, you will not be able to make public comment. If you'd like to make public comment through the teleconferencing format today, please make sure that you have joined WebEx and are identified system. Also, please mute yourself until the time has come to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. If you have joined via WebEx and wish to speak during the public hearing, please use the raise your hand feature on the far right next to your name when the public hearing is open for comments. Please wait to be recognized. 5 minutes for comment. If you cannot access the raise your hand feature, please physically raise your hand in your screen and we will call on you at the time for public comment. The county has a live Spanish language interpreter for those present and will be broadcast a Spanish version of this hearing, Spanish, WebEx, and YouTube links. And at the time, I would like to introduce Via. Materials being presented at today's hearing are available.
I just want to clarify, services here today, like translation.
Hay alguien en el público que requiere se necesita con la
Material being presented at tonight's hearing are available on the county's redistricting website, which is www.redistrictkings.com. And at this time, I will provide a background and introduce the item before you. Every 10 years, the county's supervisorial districts must be redrawn so that each district is substantially equal in population. Districting is important to ensure that each supervisor represents approximately the same number of constituents. Districting determines how neighborhoods and communities are grouped together into supervisorial districts for purposes of electing a board member. The county will, as part of its 2021 redistricting process, hold 6 public hearings to engage the public, 4 of which were held on July 20th, July 27th, August 31st, and November 3rd, 2021. Today, the county is holding its 5th public hearing. The goal of today's hearing is to review and take comment on the county's focus maps identified at the last hearing and draft maps submitted by the public on or before November 8th, 2021. The board will continue to further narrow and prioritize the map options for future consideration and approval. And at this time, I just want to call the board's attention and the public's attention, a typo on the agenda item itself. In the overview section, when it lists the focus maps, it incorrectly lists NDC 201B twice. It should be NDC 201B, NDC 203B, which it lists correctly in the background section. Notice of today's public hearing was published on the county's redistricting website, which again is districtkings.com, and was also promoted online through the county's redistrict social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. A flyer announcing the public hearing was posted online and distributed to local community-based organizations via email. In addition, the county's public outreach consultant, Pepe Smith, placed calls to community-based organizations to personally notify them of today's hearing. Lastly, the public hearing notice was published in the Hanford Sentinel on November 6th and November 10th, 2010. Upon conclusion of this hearing, the county will make available online recordings or written summaries of the public hearing. At this time, I will transition the presentation to National Demographics Corporation with Ken Chavez, who is physically here in the chambers, as well as Doug Johnson. I'm not sure if, okay. So with that, I will send the presentation over to Ken. Thank you.
And if I could, just before we get started, just to everyone, process this evening, NDC will statements with respect to this evening and your thoughts on maps and close public hearing to board discussions.
Chairman and members of the board, staff and public, it's nice to be here tonight. It's quite simple, this is going on around the country. This dynamic is there are thousands of jurisdictions doing this. It's actually an exciting time for us. It's really a powerful thing. Quickly, how we got here. Now you want to get to the maps, so I'm going to show the maps in a relatively static form as compared to as we want to zoom in and out. See here, I highlighted in blue, so that's where we have been. That's a lot. We've seen jurisdictions that don't do as much as this, and outreach that practices. Right now, focused down into what we call the focus maps. You have a draft map hearing on the 7th. Map by 14th, actually. The 14th is when you're going to meet.
Thinking here.
To review this, we've seen this a couple of times, but these are the two main parameters that we need to do. Consider it's the first on the left. Is the let's do it. Equal population, simply one person, one vote. Districts have to be relatively equal. 10% boundary up and down. Just simply has to be. And so when you do maps, you do all kinds of things, and then you try and do what's called population balancing. The last two part have to do with federal law says you cannot draw maps that dilute potential protected class to get elected. It doesn't guarantee anything. It just says classes which are linguistic and ethnic. You cannot draw maps that purposely dilute the potential get a seat or more. Last thing is you can't, obviously, all know important political terms, you can't gerrymander into a racial seat. You can't be seen as drawing circuitous routes to get to a racial seat. Right? California laws, Fair Maps Act is relatively recent. you basically in priority how maps have to be drawn. Have to be contiguous, they have to be connected, correct? The second part is the term of art that we've all heard, communities of interest. And the beauty of that space is that you get to define what those communities are. We'll see in a second some of the highlights that we have considered, heard from you and those communities of interest are. Socioeconomic, geographic, they can all sorts of things, but the community needs to tell you where those communities are, and you need to reflect that as the term of art. As best and as practicable, that's the word they use in the law, as possible, try and keep cities and census data parcels that are census designated, that are try and keep them together. The fact is there are many cities, there are many census areas that don't represent whole areas of interest, and they do split, as you know. But we try as best we can to keep cities and others together. Easily identify boundaries, again, you can, I've talked about this last time. Physical ones that are man-made, human-made, freeways, shopping centers, those can all be identified and used as things that determine communities and neighborhoods. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we're having audio issues, so a quick second to address the issue.
Take a hard reset. This is something I said.
a community. And so we use those. Let me just state, you can leave this up to Matt. Yeah, we are the map makers, so we can do all kinds of stuff. We don't know the community the way you do. What we try and do is hear what we can from the community, goes through you as the board to tell us where the community lines could be and should be, and then we will draw the maps so that they work with the federal and the state laws. Next, please. This is the current district. It's a current county, and you can see the numbers that you have, in particular, the number, the percent deviation, as I made reference to. District 4 is 7.3% over. District 5 is 5% under. That cumulatively makes more than 10%. So you have to do something to adjust the current numbers. That's just an indicator. And frankly, there are some jurisdictions around that have it balanced, and they still want to redo their maps because 10 years, there's been a shift of population and they want to redraw the maps. The key, the second part, citizen voting age, is important because you may have numbers in different districts, but you got to look for the people that can vote. Again, the districts include people who are documented, not documented, citizens, children, everybody else, but the citizen voting age is the key about the people that can vote. That note at the bottom is important. I do want to say something here. The numbers are really important, right? At the end, we look for population balance. But really, it's not what needs to drive the conversation. What needs to drive the conversation is the communities. If you do the communities of interest right, and then you work so that the numbers fit in a population balanced and or wherever your priorities are, that's critical. People slip very quickly into looking at numbers, and that's not, it does it, what you do is you get far away from the actual territory. You're looking at the map with the lines and not the territory. But I always tell audiences to make sure that you're pulling the camera back, and then we'll work the numbers afterwards. But it's important to note that. Next slide, please. These are the main headlines that we looked at as in terms of communities of interest. I suspect there are others. There is a north-south of 198. Hanford, you know, is already in multiple districts. Again, in a county like this where there's large rural areas and then concentrated urban areas, you have to go to where the people are to be able to balance districts. And so sometimes cities get split up that way. There are communities of home garden. You remember last time that we wanted to delineate and keep that whole, and you'll see the maps that we did, we adjusted that. The North Counties, cities, Hanford and Lemoore, which I didn't pronounce properly right last time, but this time I got it. South counties, cities of Avenal and Cattleman City and Corcoran. The Native American tribe, Tachiokud, for whom the chairman and the vice chairman were here last time. It's an important thing to note. Not every jurisdiction has a significant presence of a Native American tribe. And so they are a community of interest. That's important to know, the Portuguese community and others. Again, it's a partial list and we could come up with all sorts of them. But those are the headlines that we sort of went through as we were drawing the maps. Next slide. This is a quick recap, and this should sort of speak to you in terms of a funnel. On November 3rd, we had 15 maps, 11 that were submitted publicly. NDC produced 4. 9 of them were compliant, and that means population balanced. 6 were not. It doesn't mean you couldn't take the non-compliant and redo them. It's just you're trying to start with the ones that are compliant. We got to 3 focus maps, and I remember distinctly, Supervisor Valley, you asked, and everybody said, yes, we can go with those as our focus maps, right? In addition to that, since those focus maps, which we took and based on the feedback, we adjusted based on your feedback with home garden, et cetera, and we balanced them. There were 3 others that came in. One, I think, came in the night of from the city of Corcoran, where there's a little discrepancy, and I'll talk about that. But then there was public map 113 and 114, which you'll see in a moment. And again, as Matt mentioned, these were all the maps that came in before November 8th at 5 p.m. Next slide. So let's look at the maps. 112 from Corcoran. I do want to mention, it says there they're outside of the 10% deviation range. The drawing of the map was done with a subset of data that was a projected data early on. If you'll remember, we had trouble getting the data from the United States Census. And so we were using projected data. That was not changed in the map making tool, District R. And so it was drawn close. It was 10% deviation range out. Here's my comment about that. And I know for the people who did the map in Corcoran,
we can work with that. It's close to the range. If you all said to us, we like 112 and we want to work with it, we could work with that, with the new data and adjust it so that it is more in line. But I just wanted to call it out that the map was drawn with data that was not precise, not perfect, but it was close enough. And you can just sort of see the essence of that map. You can see 114 is 19% out. That one's pretty significantly deviation out. And 113 is balanced. So 112 and 114 are not balanced. 112 we could work with, 113 we can work with. It's a map that you'd want to look at. And then 114 is clearly not balanced. Those are the ones that came in separate and apart from the focus maps that you picked last time. And again, Matt is able to zoom in and out of all of these. So let's go to the next slide and you'll see the ones that we adjusted. Something I want to point out just visually, if you look at this, Public 101, which was submitted from the public, NDC 201B and NDC 203B, just sort of look at it visually. You can see Public 101 is kind of a horizontal map. You can see districts going horizontally. 201B kind of changes, it tilts and it goes vertically, if you can see, except for the district at the bottom, but the Southern District, but it's vertical. And then 203B kind of goes diagonal. I just noticed it when you sort of look at it visually, there are lots of ways to cut these districts that still are balanced and still provide the communities of interest. And you can just see the whole county being tilted sideways to get to those three different versions. The two things that we did notice here, all three have Hanford among the three districts, are currently divided among four right now. Now they're into three. All three unite the South County, right? That's the blue district at the bottom. And Public 101 is more compact as we measure compactness, but it does split Lemoore. Okay, no, 201B and 203B keep Lemoore in one district. Remember those priorities that the state sets. You can split cities or census-driven parcels, but you try not to. If you can do it without, fine. You don't have to, but you have to have a logic for how you got there. Those are the 6 maps, and by the way, there's 2 for each because how it shows up on the website, you can see the whole map and then it zeroes into the population center. That is what we got from your feedback, and we drew maps. We adjusted the focus maps, the home garden area. You'll be able to zoom in and see that it is not only in one area, but then we cleaned up the lines to make it sort of a little bit more compact, as it were. Those are the 6 maps that are in front of you. It's up to you to decide if you want to look at the ones that came in afterwards, adjust and discuss these or not. That's pretty much where we are at this point. I think the last slide basically says, what do you prefer? I'm here to take notes, to listen and answer as many questions as I can, and to hear from you and the public about what you'd like to do. And hopefully by the 7th, get to a map that you can put in front and say, this is the one we want.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
You want me to stay here? Or?
For a moment. So any questions from the board at this point before we open the public hearing?
So on map 112, you say it's a little bit outside the 10% range. So how much maneuvering do you have to do to get it adjusted?
Well, you can see it. You just have to get it under 10, pretty much. We try and stay as far away from 10 as you can. But if you're under 10, it passes, quote unquote, the smell test, right? If you look at you'll see where the numbers are. Thanks, Matt. If you zoom in there, you'll see who's over and who's under. So you can see in 112, District 4 is still over and District 5 is still under. So that map, I think, if memory serves, is relatively close to your current district. And I think based on the letter that was written, I think there was a sense of that's what they wanted to stay is.
Adjust 4 and 5 and
Exactly. You could adjust basically the 7 down, the 4th district down, the 5th district up, and you could get close to that. And that was the voice of Corcoran.
Mr. Chairman. So the other question is going to 112. So they went through your website.
Your
use
website.
This?
Yes.
Okay, and we didn't have the updated data in it at the time that they did that. So the question is, was it our responsibility to take this map, now that we have that new data since the last public hearing, to make it up to speed for tonight?
No, so the system, the software that they use, District R, didn't have it. And frankly, the company is having some issues and they weren't loading new data. It was not loaded with new data, okay? It's our responsibility, if you tell us that you like this map, that you want this concept, to adjust it now after this process, based on this plus the other 5. We can adjust this one and get you within population balance if you tell us that that's what you'd want to do.
How soon would we be able to see that? Because just looking at it right now and looking at the CVAP numbers, it doesn't create a second Hispanic Latino majority district. This map right here just keeps one, which is mine, and it keeps it at 75% on there. So how soon could we see this? If you adjusted, the public's not going to see it until when, December 7th?
Yeah, presumably we could put it on the in the public space faster than that. But I would say to you again, those numbers are what they are. I think Supervisor Verboen got it, and you just got it. So it's between 4 and 5. And so it would be an adjustment of, if you look at the map, it's kind of up and down. It's right there. I don't know how that would change the CVAP for the Hispanic community.
Yeah.
And again, this is where you're looking at the numbers and the map at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the numbers because one of the things you said on the first slide was that we're not allowed to draw maps that dilute the chance for an ethnic group to have an opportunity to have somebody to represent them up here. So do you go off the CVAP numbers when you say you can't dilute?
You can, but there's not a hard and fast rule. Many people will say, look at 50%, but I assure you, there are jurisdictions around this country that have north of 50% that are not electing the target, whether it's African-American or Hispanic or Asian, et cetera. So the answer is we try and, in that regard, we try and stay away from looking at a precise number, but generally speaking, north of 50%.
Okay.
And there are districts that have lower than 50% that elect people from protected classes. And so it's not a hard and fast rule, Supervisor.
No, yes, sir. It is here, though. If you go to 1893, I'm the only one sitting up here since 1893. So, well, Mr. Chair, this map came from my hometown of Corcoran, out of my district. I don't want to be shut down to it, but I would like to see the updated data, the updated lines on this as soon as possible. That being said, we have 3 good maps from the last public hearing to look at in depth that are ready to go right now as well. So I guess I'll just leave it there. Thanks, sir.
Further questions from the board? Seeing none, we will at this time go ahead and open the public hearing. As stated earlier, you have 5 minutes for public comment, and we will hold you to that. So with that, Madam Clerk.
The first speaker is Harold Reed.
Hey, Mr. Chair, before your first one goes, I do have a question. When the minutes came out from the last public hearing, we just had people that it just lists their names of who came to the podium, but it doesn't put for the public's attention what that person's comment was as it relates to these maps. Are we going to change that for the minutes for this one?
Are we going to change for the
To have
written minutes?
More detailed minutes of this public hearing.
You know, the entire public hearing is accessible on redistrictkings.com, and that's what the county's obligation is. If you want a summary, I think it might be cumbersome and burdensome to do a summary of each public testimony in the actual minutes. But certainly that information is available through redistrictkings.com.
Okay, but I guess it's a fair question to ask because every public hearing we've had, we put in the minutes what the testimony is at the public, with the exception of the last public hearing where it just said the name of the person who came to the podium. We always put a summary.
if it's the board's direction and that's what you want to see done, then certainly staff can do it. I think that with the number of people who are doing public comment, it could be burdensome. I will inquire with staff whether or not that would be too burdensome to incorporate. But I do believe that that information is available online at redistrictking.com.
Okay, I just want to note that issue, it's a issue of transparency. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, now you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. First time I've been to one of these meetings, and sort of like the speaker spoke a while ago. Maybe if I hadn't showed up, we wouldn't have this error, this problem we had. Anyway, I've been on the board in Home Garden. My name's Harold Rady, by the way, address 9607 Eastview Drive, Hanford, Home Garden. I've been on the Home Garden board since about 1986. When I first got on the board, we were considered old Home Garden and new Home Garden. One side had a supervisor, the other side had a supervisor. One to the west, 10th Avenue, one to the east, 10th Avenue. And finally, about 10 years or so in the past now, maybe a few years more, but we finally got to where we were considered a whole body. We have one supervisor. Now, I don't know exactly how this redistricting is going to work, but I would like to see Home Garden say again as one whole district instead of split us up. All payments are made for the utility service out there in Home Garden is paid at one place. So if it's paid at one place, should we be one whole? Also, I've talked to various members of the community, but knows a little bit of background on Home Garden. And they are happy being able to say, okay, we're part of this district. We've been in this district a long time. So whatever turns out in this redistricting, I hope that Home Garden can stay in the district it's in. And I think our people in our community will be happy with that. So that's all really I got to say. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for comments.
The next speaker is Kathleen Jorgensen.
Good evening, Kathleen Jorgensen. I live in Hanford. You have my address. I prefer not to give it again. I just want to speak just very briefly on Public Map 101. It is the map that is the best map. It is the spirit and the intention of the law. We're not supposed to go and try to finagle and get right under 10% so that we can make something good. This is the map that really is done with the thought, the spirit, and the intention of the Fair Maps law. And I think that this is what you need to do. We need not to worry about where my district is if I'm going to still be in it. I heard that comment tonight. That's not where we are. We need to have our community represented. And again, I say, I don't see anybody up there who looks like me. And I think it's time that we start drawing the maps so that we're not packing and we're not cracking, because the South Hanford has been cracked for years into 3 different districts, and it's been done intentionally. So I hope that you'll think about that and think about what the law really says. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Hallie Spence.
My name is Hallie Spence. I live in Hanford. The Community Map 101 has very effective voting rights acts district. I want the Board of Supervisors to vote for the Public Map 101 to represent me and my family in Kings County. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Susan Ross.
I support the equity. I'm Susan Ross from Hanford. I support the equity coalition map known as Public Map 101 with all of my friends because it draws effective voting rights act districts by carefully considering the voting data. For a district to be effective, the population and registration percentages of protected class members in that district must be above 50%. The Equity Coalition map draws two such districts, Districts 2 and District 4. Speaking to you, sir. Please adopt the Equity Coalition map referred to as Public Map 101.
The next speaker
you.
is Richard Chipton.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker is Ron Bates. Oh, that's right.
Always something, right? I'm Ron Bates, District 5. I've spoken to you many times, and I'm going to say the same thing, only this time in fewer words. I know you'll appreciate that. The board has a community-driven option that includes very effective Voting Rights Act districts. That's what I've spoken to you about each time I've been here since July 20th. I request Kings County Board of Supervisors vote to approve Public 101 map. That is the map that shows that you are taking care of the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jesus Garcia.
Board members, good evening. My name is Jesus Garcia, and I with the Community's Assistance through the Valley Voices map. You have been given literally a sacred duty to uphold the Constitution, and in that sacred duty is the peaceful transfer of power to the community. This is not the folks here. This is not a Capital 6 insurrection. This is community in action. These maps were drawn by data, real data, as collected by the Census Bureau, as was collected by your very able community here. I've done an analysis of all the maps, including map 14. They're works of art, many of them. None of them meet the standards, except for the Valley Voices map 101. I've done the analysis not only on population, which our variance is 49. I think the statistics is 1/3 of 1%. I've done the analysis on CVAP, and we've created 2 rock solid CVAP districts. We've also incorporated communities of interest. Now, the consultant from the very reputable firm mentioned communities of interest. Now there's a balance between communities of interest and VRA. VRA supersedes communities of interest, just to let you know. That's why we were able to split Hanford and Lemoore. Finally, I've done an analysis of voter data, which is in the Fair Maps Act, that states voter statistics is a valid measure to compare effectiveness. So comparing effectiveness, only the Valley Voices map meets all 3 criteria. And so again, I urge you to follow your duties sworn to the Constitution to begin the process. Now, if the peaceful transfer of power is back to you, that's fine. That's not, we're not here to throw you out just to throw you out. But we do need to move ahead. This county needs to move ahead. This valley needs to move ahead. And so I thank you for your time, for your consideration.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Barbara Castle.
Hi, my name is Barbara Castle and I live in Hanford. And again, you also have my address from last time. I have a really long thing I was going to read, but I've changed my mind because other people have said what I wanted to say better than I could. I do support Public Map 101. It has compact districts. I had great concerns about 203B and 201B because both of them had boundaries that seemed to go along the river south of Lemoore. And I kind of thought, what's the difference in east of the river and west of the river as far as what they have in common? I can't think of very much. They seem to have the same people and the same businesses in those areas. I did notice that the city of Stratford was conveniently set aside, but that's the result, all the nitpicking I was going to share with you today. I did appreciate that Public Map 101 had two really solid Latino majority districts that were laid out. Those were Area 2 and Area 4 at nice, better than 51 or 53% of the population kind of numbers big enough to make a difference in an election. And that's my comment for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Joan Howard.
Good evening. Thank you for having the open forum. I live in Kings County, but I don't feel like I'm represented by my Board of Supervisors. I think Public Map 101 will do a better job of representing me and my community. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Barbara Hill.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Hill. I live at 710 Montecito Court in Lemoore, California, District 1. If anybody who knows me know that I work with a great deal of youth in the community, and I believe I'm here to look at their future and the importance of doing our civic duty and coming to speak to a board like this. And I'd like to let you know that I support Public Map 101. I think it's important that we have maps that represent and districts that represent those of us in the community. And I think that passing any other map would not have the correct borders and the correct voting in our community. So for the children in our community and the future of our community, please vote for 101.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Claire Fidiasi.
Hello, my name is Claire Fidiasi. I live in Hanford and have for over 20 years. The 2020 census numbers make it very clear that Kings County has a majority of people of color, and new district lines must be drawn to create effective Voting Rights Act districts. Will the new boundaries reflect who we are? This board needs to vote for a map that represents the people, not the board's interests. If you don't, it is going to cost Kings County taxpayers millions of dollars. We know this because of Kern County, the Luna case, cost over $12 million that county taxpayers had to pay in litigation costs because the Board of Supervisors did not follow the law. So yes, there are lots of parts of the Voting Rights Act and the Fair Map Act, but there are criteria. And there is one map that best meets the criteria of the law, and that is Public Map 101.
I don't want the Board of Supervisors to have to pay out millions of dollars in legal fees because you made a bad choice. Please make a good choice representing the voice of the community and vote for Public Map 101. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Margaret Loronis.
Hi, my name is Margaret Loronis. I live in Corcoran, 1509 Hall Avenue, District 2. I appreciate the opportunity to attend this evening hearing and to speak tonight, so thank you. During the last hearing, I started to think about the meaning of the community of interest and how it's identified. We're all sort of familiar with the definition, but we haven't really looked at all of the definition of what a community of interest really is tonight. So if you'll bear with me, this is the definition from the California Constitution. A community of interest is a contiguous population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. Examples of such shared interests are those common to an urban area, a rural area, an industrial area, or an agricultural area, and those common to areas in which people share similar living standards, use the same transportation facilities, have similar work opportunities, or have access to the same media of communication relevant to the election process. Communities of interest shall not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. That's the definition of a community of interest from the California Constitution. I live in Corcoran. One feature of my city, which I did not hear mentioned at the last hearing, is our 2 state prisons. One other city in Kings County also has a state prison, that is Avenal. Again, from the definition of a community of interest, people share similar living standards, use the same transportation facilities, have similar work opportunities. Corcoran and Avenal fit this definition, sharing not only work opportunities in state prisons, but also agriculture, agricultural processing, schools, local government, and retail. As the Corcoran City Council mentioned in their letter, which was read at the last hearing, the city councils of Corcoran and Avenal collaborate on some projects. For example, the 2 cities share an animal shelter. I was glad to see that all 3 focus maps keep Corcoran and Avenal together in one district. Corcoran and Avenal do form a community of interest. The board must reject any proposed map which divides this community of interest. While Corcoran and Avenal are incorporated cities, 2 other small almost cities in Kings County also share features with the cities. Distinct borders in a rural setting, service by cart, location in the southern portion of Kings County, water issues, agriculture, demographics, socioeconomic status. Kettleman City and Stratford are similar to Corcoran and Avenal in many ways and must also be included in the same community of interest. Home Garden is different, and I'm glad we have a speaker from Home Garden tonight. Our consultant aptly pointed out at the last hearing, it is not really clear where Home Garden ends and Hanford begins. Unlike the cities of Corcoran and Avenal and the almost cities of Kettleman City and Stratford, Home Garden is connected to Hanford and along with the other communities on the south side of Hanford, south of 198. Home Garden has been very ably represented by Supervisor Valley for the past 10 years, but it also shares characteristics with other areas on the south side of Hanford, south of Highway 198. It is not quite a city in the same way that Corcoran, Avenal, Stratford, and Kettleman City are. I believe it would benefit the community of Home Garden to elect one of its own to represent it on the Board of Supervisors. And I think I heard a future supervisor here tonight. It would be beneficial to the community south of 198 on the south side of Hanford to elect one of its own to represent it on the board. That's why the board should adapt Public Map 101, the only map which keeps together the community of interest, which includes Avenal, Corcoran, Kettleman City, and Stratford, and also keeps together the community of interest, which includes Home Garden and the other areas of Hanford, south of Highway 198. That's why we must support Public Map 101. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Paula Massey.
Hello, I'm Paula Massey. I live here in Hanford on the south side. Public Map 101, I agree with that. But what I came tonight to speak on, and I'm so glad that we're allowing questions from the diocese, especially Richard Valley. Last time he was here, he had a lot of questions. And the questions that he was asking were questions that we as the public who are here needed to hear the answers. And he was able to get some answers, but later on it was sort of like, we'll talk about that later. Let's get to that later. And then later never came because you called a closed session. And I'm like, what the heck? We're here as a community to be a part of this, to find out what's actually happening, what's going to take place in our community. And then you call a closed session on questions that I myself wanted to know the answer to. So I'm grateful tonight that Mr. Valley was able to ask his questions, and I'm able to get a more understanding of what's actually happening. So I'm not sure exactly, is that how it's done? You just take things to the back room and discuss them and then bring.
Ms. Massey, I'm going to have to stop you there. Council, could you please address this? We didn't call a closed session in the middle of anything.
At the end. There was a closed session at the end. Yeah, y'all didn't answer.
Stopped the public hearing, and then we deliberated with the board, which is how a public hearing works.
Are you saying that?
Did y'all deliberate by yourselves about some things? Because even tonight, you're gonna, after the closed sessions, then you're gonna deliberate. Is that what's happening?
After the public hearing and public comment portion is closed, then the board will discuss the matters.
Is that discussed among us, or is that discussed behind closed doors?
It's not behind closed doors. It will be open in public.
Okay.
This is your opportunity to provide your input.
Thank you.
At that time, the board, once the public hearing is closed, will take it back for information discussion amongst the board.
Amongst the board.
Discuss it in front of you in open session.
Yeah.
So my mistake, my misunderstanding, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak and clarify. Because when I come to these meetings, I expect to, hear what I came to hear, Thank you very much. Public Map 101, yes, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, on the clarification there, I think to Ms. Massey's point, or the point of confusion, I think she's referring to, there was a time during the public meeting when I was asking questions and you stopped me. And so I think that's what she might be confused with. And you said, well,
That she didn't have the opportunity to provide input. We had,
but we did, you're right, we didn't have a closed session. I'm just trying to say, that's probably where the confusion is coming from. I was trying to ask questions and you stopped me and you moved it to later.
okay. So next.
The next person is Anthony Lopez.
Hi, good evening again. My name is Anthony Lopez, longtime resident of Avenal. Address is 600 Sonoma Lane. First of all, thank you all for adding this additional public hearing and meeting for the public, especially in the evening time. Definitely very grateful and beneficial for a lot more, see some new faces at tonight's meeting. Seems like a lot's already been said. Personally, I will just say I am grateful that the board's considering has narrowed down the maps that don't split Avenel away from the district it's already in and the communities of interest, has kind of already been mentioned. But just want to urge the board once it comes time to voting that I do believe Public Map 101 definitely is the best fit for the whole county and for all the communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Lupe Chavez.
Good evening, Supervisors. Lupe Chavez, Avenel. 304 East San Mateo, City of Avenel. Once again, the law has been said already. I don't think I could add any more to it. Besides here that I'm supportive of 101 where it stands. You know, it's nice to have good representation and would like definitely to keep it. You know, I don't agree 100% with Mr. Valle, but one thing I do agree with him 100% on is that we both represent our communities very well. He represents us very well. I try to do my best to represent my community very well. So in that, you know, I would love to keep that going. So with everything that's been said already, wonderful things. I don't think I can add more to that besides in support of Public 101. Thank you.
The next speaker is Aurelia Vallejo.
Good evening, supervisors and the public. Aurelia Vallejo, I live at 10284 9.5 Avenue. I am here to represent the Kings County Latino Roundtable. We're an organization of leaders within the community, and we fully support Public Map 101. We have lots of challenges in this beautiful county that I'm now a resident of. After 20 years in public health, we have lots of challenges. We have the third lowest vaccination rates, COVID vaccination rates in the state. We have valley fever. We have high diabetes rates. We have youth that are smoking. I'd like to see more emphasis on that, more prevention services for our youth, and hopefully with a potential new leader, hopefully that can happen. Please, I hope that you select Public Map 101. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lupe Chavez.
Good evening, once again, supervisors and fellow Kings County neighbors. My name is Lupe Chavez Villarreal. I'm here today. First off, I want to say thank you to our board, specifically Supervisor Valle, for moving to hold another public hearing, which would be today's hearing in the evening, where more folks can participate in this process of redistricting. I truly am appreciative of that, and I know some of our neighbors are also. It was very nice to see that, truly. As a lot of folks have said today, I am also supporting Public Map 101 for a lot of the same reasons that my neighbors are supporting it. It is the best map. It is pretty close to equal in population for each district, less than 1%, which I don't think you can get any closer than that. As Jesus mentioned, it was about 49 people in difference. But I do want to address once again that even though there are several legal requirements that are supposed to be followed in drawing maps, it seems that this board has had no apparent training in what those requirements are, other than the short introduction, which is done at the beginning of each meeting, which is provided to the public. And even though the California Fair Maps Act has changed that law substantially, despite the requirements to engage public participation and in good faith, the outreach done to engage the community was obviously deficient, as provided by the limited community involvement. I think that it is in each of our supervisors' interest to engage with the constituents that they represent and get them involved in this process. It can only benefit our community as a whole. Spanish speakers, once again, have had at each other meeting problems with translation. That to me, and I know that many other Spanish speakers that our organization has reached out to, has engaged with, when problems like that arise, it says to them that this board and our community doesn't really care what they have to say because they don't speak the language that you do. And that's a problem for me. Okay. Although this county has failed in its mission, the community has not. It says a lot when organizations such as Valley Voices are out there doing the outreach for redistricting more than our own representatives for this county. I'm a little disappointed. And that's not to say you aren't doing your job as supervisors. I think that more can be done. It would be nice to see more supervisors out in community events, different community events, like I've seen Richard at any event that I've been at. If we all had representatives more like Mr. Valle, I think we would be in good shape. I also don't feel that I am represented when I look at this board, other than the one person of color on this board. There's no women on here, which is something that I hope to see change and soon. Members of the Equitable Maps Coalition have attended all the workshops and the hearings and worked together to draw a map that addresses the authentic community input and follows all legal requirements. So I once again request that the Board of Supervisors thoughtfully considers Public Map 101 when making their decision for our new county map. Thank you.
The next speaker is Alvaro Preciado.
Good evening, Chair, board members. Alvaro Preciado, 800 Eastern Street in Avenal. I'm here today to also voice the concerns of my community. As the mayor of the city of Avenal, I've been talking to community members regarding about their way of, the way of thinking about how these maps are going to represent our community. Most really believe that we do have a community of interest with Corcoran, Carmen City, and also Stratford. In a way, I have family members actually in Carmen City and in Stratford. And I know when, I know what when we get together, we, have the same common way of living. We have the same challenges. We have the same way of transportation. We feel that we're kind of isolated for the county headquarters at times. When the community services, it's kind of hard to come to Hanford or even Madera or Fresno. There is transportation, but sometimes takes half a day or the whole day just to do your regular business. So I believe we need to keep those communities of interest together as a one. Not only that, I urge you to have two districts of the same community interest. So it does help at meetings when the decision is made to for the funding or special projects we go to. It does help to have somebody who's willing to help another community of interest. And I believe as 4 members, you should look at county or Kings County as your whole district, not District 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 when it comes to spending that funding. We're talking about equity. I really don't see that equity in rural communities. So I want you to take that into consideration when you take your vote into making the districts more equitable for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ruth Lopez.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Lopez. Like I mentioned before, I'm a resident in Hanford, a long life, family in Armona. So just to reiterate what has already been said, this board has a constitutional duty to fairly allocate political power amongst 5 supervisorial districts. The Fair Maps Act requires that certain criteria be met in order. Voting Rights Act districts that are effective must be drawn first in conjunction with low deviance or variance. In other words, equal population. The Public Map 101 has the lowest variance of population in any of the maps presented. Equal population and Voting Rights Act obligations are top priorities. For Kings County, this means 2 Latino majority districts that are effective must be drawn. And so Public Map 101 accomplishes this. Discussion and prioritization of any other criteria above Voting Rights Act obligations or equal population would violate the California Fair Maps Act. This means discussion of geographic integrity over VRA obligations is prohibited. Discussion of recognizable lines over VRA obligations is prohibited. Discussion of political boundaries above VRA obligations is prohibited. The Valley Voices Community Map is the only map that draws effective Voting Rights Act districts for Kings County and follows the laws set for the Fair Maps Act. And to end with Public Maps 112 and 113, I think it's a little misleading to say that Public Map 113, it has a balanced population when it looks exactly like Public Map 112. So we didn't go into detail into that, but I don't think Public Map 113 has a balanced population there when it looks exactly like the current map that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all the speaker cards I have. I understand that Stephen Tarr is online and would like to speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Tarr.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Tarr. I live at 2102 Beechwood
Please
Court
make sure you're
here in
unmuted.
Hanford.
He's not muted.
Am I not clear? Okay, can anybody hear me? All right, I'm out.
He's reaching out to him through.
Do we have other online speakers? We can come back to Mr. Tarr.
That's the only hand up that we see. On accident.
Test. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Hello.
Trying to troubleshoot to see if we can access.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Hi.
Go.
There we go.
You got it.
I'll start from the top, I guess. We're good?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Please
My
go ahead.
name is Stephen Tarr. I live at 2102 Beechwood Court here in Hanford. I'm briefly voicing my support for Public 101 as it seems to best allow more equitable representation of King's changing demographics, giving a more effective voice to more people with minimal sacrifice for any one group. Thank you for this forum. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Curia has her hand up, but not on purpose.
Right. So just to clarify one more time, that's it for both.
That is all the speaker cards and the people online.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak that didn't have a card in? Or we was that? Okay. With that, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And I would have maybe NDC come back up and maybe just outline again for everyone in the audience where we're at today and where we would go from here based on the information that's been presented, also the information you have today.
Yeah, the only outline is to funnel down even further. You have maps that are balanced, that represent various communities of interest, as you've heard, at different levels, as long as they're within the 10% of their population balanced, they can be considered. It's just a matter of you all deliberating based on all of that information, which map gets closest to representing Kings County. At that point, you would bring that map back to the meeting on the 7th and approve it, and then it would go forward. And not approve it, you'd bring it for the, what's the next step?
The next public hearing is to present the maps. We are anticipating that there will be a resolution that day in order to approve the maps. I want to say also, in addition to what Ken just said, that with the maps that we have right now, you can also recommend additional changes. And so it's not just what's there, but you can also request changes to the maps to be brought back.
So for clarification, council, public should know that the December 14th date that's in this packet, that's a moot point, right? That's just if there is a delay on the 7th, but with the resolution that you spoke of, that gave counties the ability to expedite from December 14th to December 7th, correct?
Yeah, it would be my hope, although certainly we don't want to short circuit the process, but it would be my hope to be able to bring a resolution back before the board to adopt on the 7th. If it gives us a week of cushion in case in case it's needed.
That's pretty much it. Sounds simple, but it's not.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. And with that, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion now that public session or public hearing is closed. It's, again, just making sure we all understand it's not closed session. This is bring it back to the board for public deliberation or board deliberation. So with that, I open the floor to the board for comments.
We'll bring back map 112.
It's too far out of line.
How do you feel about 113?
You know, that's the only one that would be workable, but.
Yeah, like, 113, I think, is a good map. I think, based on comments from Harold, or I apologize, blanking on the last name, but, 203 was another map that looks and addresses some things, but again, it doesn't address the issues of home garden fully. And maybe could you bring map 203 up? 203B, excuse me. Well, I guess it's the area of home garden. Currently, it's split outside of District 4, right? Okay, so then that line would be west of the home garden proper, I guess, is what I'm seeing there. Correct? So would it leave home garden intact? Question?
I'm not personally familiar with the entirety of the boundaries of home garden, so I'm going to leave that up to the board who's familiar with the area or others who are more familiar.
Well, could you zoom in one more time on that, just so I can see the avenue? Scroll down a little bit, please.
That keeps home garden intact.
Yeah.
And we made that change last meeting, correct?
Go down.
Out of District 2's hand in District
Mr. Reed, does Home Gardens go south of Houston? No. So Houston is the district boundary? Is Houston Avenue the district boundary to Home Gardens?
You mean like is in community service district?
Right. So again, then I would also consider 203B as a.
District 5.
What?
That would be a District 5.
Mr. Chairman, is this the 113 map that you have, Jim?
I think this is 203B.
Only because 113 was brought up. Can you go and zoom in? I can't tell if the Santa Rosa Rancheria is split into two districts, what their business is in one district and the actual rancheria and the residential area in another district.
113.
I'm 113.
Yeah,
That's 16th Avenue, right?
yeah, all in one district.
This right here is 18. Jersey. Or excuse me, Jersey here. Oh, sorry, here it is.
Don't they own, Steve knows, don't they own land that expands more to the east there? And if they did something with it, it would be in another, split in a different district.
Not to the east. Well, yeah, they do. It does, because Matt, is that 16th Avenue? Yes. Correct.
That's that low ground.
Oh, that's
yeah.
below them. Yeah, so they do own property, but it would be very difficult to serve because of elevation.
They own property.
All the way to Kansas. Correct. Yeah, we were able to put that into trust 10 years ago. 10, 12 years ago.
Margaret this year.
Correct.
And Mr. Chairman, while we're talking 113 though, I mean, to the core of the discussion today from the public and the gentleman from NDC, you look at the CVAP numbers on Latino percentages, District 4 is only at 51%, where the Public 101 map would raise District 4 to a 60% Latino certified voting age population. And that's important to a lot of people in this room from hearing them speak. So I would be hard pressed to continue a conversation on a map that in essence only keeps one Hispanic majority district and doesn't give anyone else an opportunity, as been pointed out by the public many times last public hearing and again tonight.
I guess that's, what your definition would be of a majority. And I think if you look at the last election, the country was pretty much split right down the middle. But from the standpoint of, and I may ask our representatives here, can you please enlighten us again to the mandated law with respect to that issue or county council?
Excuse me. Jim Sanchez is actually here and to speak on the requirements of the Voting Rights Act and that relevant law. He was coming up to the podium.
Very good.
Chair and Board, Jim Sanchez with the Lozano Smith firm. The issue about whether there's a mandate to have 2 or 3 or to even have a stronger population number. From our standpoint, we did have some discussion about that last time, and our opinion was this is a legislative decision, the courts will defer to the legislative discretion of the board in deciding all of the factors that have been laid out. The map 113 does have two majority minority districts, Hispanic, Latino districts in it. Whether 51% constitutes sufficient voting strength to have representative one person, one vote elections out of that district is really at this stage at the discretion of the board. You have facts before you in terms of the communities of interest. Those are the things that you look at. You look at the geographical formation of the district and the boundaries, and you avoid the issues that we talked about, gerrymandering and some of the other things. Assuming you take those steps consistent with law, the 2 or 3 or the percentage of 51% or greater in terms of the population makeup of the districts is within the legislative discretion of the board.
Very good, thank you.
So do you see any risk has been pointed out by members of the public of the county without creating two majority districts of being at risk for litigation?
I would say to the board in these matters, there's always a risk of litigation in terms of the defensibility of your actions. Recognizing that you have now focused on several maps, it would be my opinion that the maps that you are focusing on right now would be defensible maps. 113 with the 2 districts, absent other information that has not been presented yet in terms of historical voting patterns or those kinds of things, your decision there could be defensible as well.
We have that. We have it. Voter turnout in this district in 2019 in District 4 amongst Hispanics was 44%. So that's what I'm saying. You start looking, when you start at the top and you say it's defensible because just looking at District 4 again, total population of Hispanics are 64%. But when you go down to citizen voting age population, which is what we're really talking about here, it drops down to 51%. And then when you look at actual turnout, it drops down to 48%. So when I look at data like that and I try to match that up with the spirit of the law, meaning to give an ethnic group an opportunity, because it's no guarantee. You could have it at 86% Hispanic and the district could still vote somebody else in. And that's just what makes America, America.
So in response, if that's a question, my response would be, we can certainly dig deeper into the numbers based upon the historical voting patterns. But based upon what I have seen thus far, whether you decide on, for example, 113 with a 51% majority or not, you've got the majority absent the voting patterns that you described that we can dig down into deeper, I believe would still be defensible. But we can look at that and have a final word for you when you have your final decisions.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, I just for discussion, I know we're just kind of filtering. I'm in support of Public 101 and not supportive of Public 113.
Matthew, could you bring up the voting numbers in 203B, please? And that voter registration, 54% Hispanic. The age, 51%, so both. Okay. Thank you. Other comments from members of the board?
What, Mr. Chair, when you brought that up, was it because you want to put that 203B as one in favor?
I think it's a possible consideration. I just, that's one of those things.
Okay, well, if we're talking tier 3B, the notes that I've made on this one is that when you look at the map, Home Garden goes to District 5, which District 5, we all know is an ag district. Historically, the supervisor from District 5 comes from an ag background, and the amount of dairies and farmers in District 5 just does not line up with the definition of neighborhood or communities of interest when you lump Home Garden back in there, which Home Garden was identified as an issue when it was in this district back in 2010 when we underwent redistricting. And that's why Home Garden was taken out of District 5 and put in District 2, being the seat that I represent. So if we talked on map 203B, my comment would be that we take Home Garden and we move it in District 4. So Matthew, you can pull up the map, and I just want to put for the folks who could draw the line, the gentleman from NDC. I think you could, I would be interested in looking at the numbers and the data, focus on the purple one. Matthew, please. Come out a little bit more, please. More. I want to see all of district. Yeah. So now you went too far. So if you look at the red line, and Matthew, follow with the arrows so the public can follow along. That red line going around, that's the current district as it sits today, right? And then the blue line is District 2, my district, going up and going into this out of my district more to the north. But I would be interested in seeing if District 4 under this map, you see that District 4 has been expanded to the west of Armada, creeping towards Lemoore. See that side? Well, if you cut that out and you put the expansion to the east, you can take in the community of Home Garden. And I think that we meet the spirit and the intent of the law and the definitions that are presented to us by doing that, because now you have Armona, Southside Hanford, and Home Garden. And as much as it would break my heart to not represent Home Garden, which I would never stop doing that anyways, it would, that would be something that I would see Home Garden being in a comfortable district with other communities that are similar to their challenges and everything that's been outlined tonight. Again, I can't see Home Garden being in that historically ag district there, going north and then northeast into the county. That just doesn't line up. So that would be my remark on this map, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Right. Well,
Bring them back when we're done.
yeah, well, I think it's important that in this process, clearly there are lines, but I think we don't need to disenfranchise districts and people that have had traditional voting areas. But having said that, I think going back to 113, I think it has met the standards that have been outlined by Home Garden. It has met the standards of requirements that I think this board is required to make. And so that would be the map that I would choose that,
This is a public map. We know where it came from, 113?
Well, legally, we can't ask that. I don't believe we can ask that question.
We're told where 101 came from.
Yeah, they publicly brought that up. But
We don't have a name. They're submitted and they're assigned a number, so we don't have a name.
yeah, I like 113 as well. I don't have a problem with 101. Get it.
I'm not a big fan of 101, but I do like 113. Move the breakdown back.
Other comments?
I have comments. I just want to wait for the other two gentlemen.
They don't have comments, so
So, Mr. Chair, I have comments in since you're moving in a direction here.
I'm giving my opinion, and you're free to give yours.
Okay, am I recognized?
You've
Can I speak? I know, but then you interrupted me. Look, yes, you did.
pretty good at interrupting me, so I think we're probably even on that one. So go ahead, please.
I'm glad the true colors are starting to come out. This right here is why when people talk about having a majority district to get another person of color up here is very important, because that little flash right there, for anyone who's paid attention the last 13 years, it gets a lot worse than that. It gets rude. Being the only Hispanic up here has been extremely challenging. So thank you for doing that. The point, there you go. See, you're welcome. That right there, it's for some reason it's open season on the only Hispanic up here, and it's been that way. To have another person of color up here, being the only one up here, I can tell you, for Kettleman City, right now we are making a lot of progress in Kettleman City. We have curb, gutter, sidewalk going there, and I have thanked the board for that. But I can tell you that it took me 7 years in a row, where in the budget process in the summer, where I would go back to bat for that community, and I would ask for the money to give those residents the basic infrastructure that they lack there. Zero curb, gutter, and sidewalk when I got elected to that community in 2009. And 7 years in a row, the motion either failed for lack of a second, or it was voted down. And that's because there was only one voice up here who was compassionate enough to look at those issues. When you look at the makeup of the board, actually, I would wish that you don't, as I'm in on my time.
Together as a team. And once you made the motion 11, 12 years ago, once we decided how to work with you, work together as a team, we got things done. Right now, the way we're going, we're not going to get anything done with this accusation. We work better if we work together to get curb, gutter, and sidewalk.
No one's made, but I haven't made any accusations here tonight. All I did was speak about was fact on what's taken place up here
So
in the
I'm going to
last
stop
13 years.
the back and forth, present your case. Both have the opportunity to do that. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So, case in point, you have from the last public hearing to tonight's public hearing, the majority of the people spoke about public map 101. Then it comes back to the board. 101 is zero support, it looks like. So this is a board of the makeup that is not listening to the people, okay? Based out of the 2010 districts and who's represented up here, to not even listen to you, to just skip over all of the comments. And I don't know what happened, because last public hearing, Super Boone was the one who presented Public 101 on that. That was you, sir.
But I like 113 as well.
Okay.
If we go to vote on it, we'll take a couple of them, we'll vote on one or two.
Yeah. So the comments that I heard from the chairman, if I heard them right, were that you don't want to disenfranchise anyone, you don't want to break tradition. That translates to we don't want to change anything. I'm not. I'm summarizing.
Comments.
You know, we have policy here, Mr. Chairman, and it's, you recognize me. It's my turn to speak. You did not get to interrupt me. You don't get to interrupt me.
Oh, boy, you are a piece.
Sorry you're here tonight. I know it was more comfortable 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, when you
Chairing the meeting out of the state of California.
my
Okay.
location and then
So,
use it as a political.
yeah.
So go ahead,
Yeah.
use your political weapons more.
I sure hope you guys are here at the meeting on December 7th. When we vote, I can't promise that it makes a difference because you're seeing in full display of what we have here tonight. And this is nothing. You should see every Tuesday morning at 9, and you should see what takes place behind the scenes here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further comments from the board? All right, it appears we have expended the comment period. And with that, thank you all for coming. Thank you for all your comments, and we will move forward. Madam Council, would you please outline the next meeting, the structure of the next couple of meetings?
So we're looking at right now, we're looking at 101 going back, correct? West Valley, 101,
Yes, sir.
113. Yes, it said 113. Which one would you like, 113? 101? Like that?
Yes.
And we want to make any modifications to those at all?
Yes, we need to probably balance it.
Could I ask a question as well? I understand there's a couple of maps that may be out there, and there's still time for those to be in. We're good.
Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. I hope everybody can hear me better now. If there are maps that have not been submitted yet, they can be submitted. We can consider them, and they will be presented at the next hearing.
Very good, thank you.
So on a modification of the maps, I think 113 and both 101 and 113 are pretty close to being correct in numbers that are legal by the voting age group, right? And you want to make any modification to those at all or any adjustments? I know 101, you may not be in your district.
But that's okay. That's not.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so let me,
I see you there, Harold, but the public comment period is finished, so thank you. Sir, we. Okay, then we're going to get a line and.
What, this is the first time I've seen the maps tonight. I tried to see them on the internet and saw some of it. But what my main concern is, whichever way you go, try to recognize the map that keeps Home Garden as whole.
We got you.
We want it to be whole.
We've heard you.
Otherwise, when it was split up, the problem was this side wanted something done. But we didn't want to do one side without thinking of the other side. So we had to get the other supervisor, whoever it was, to get together with the other one so we could get something done as a whole. If we keep ourselves together, which has worked out nice now, whenever you look at them, make sure you do your best to try to keep Home Garden as a whole.
Okay. With that, council.
yeah, I'd like to understand what the board's direction is pretty clear. So I'm going to try and restate it to you. And please correct me where I'm wrong. I understand the board's direction is to bring back map 101 and to also bring back map 113. Is the board directing any modifications to map 101?
Without looking at it again, I don't know if it keeps Home Garden whole. It does. That's good. And 113, I think, does as well.
Are there any other modifications or any modifications to 101? I'm not hearing any modifications, so it would come back in its present form unless the board directs otherwise. Okay, do we have a consensus with that? Supervisor Fagundes, do we have a consensus with that?
Fine with me.
Peterson? Valley?
You're just talking on 101?
Right now, I'm just addressing 101. We're bringing map 101 back as is.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a consensus there. Let's go to map 113. The board has expressed a desire to bring 113 back for consideration. Are there any modifications that the board is directing us to make?
Well, there is that shift to the west to take back in home gardens. So it would change us to District 4.
Okay, so you want to take back in home gardens to District 4 to shift those boundaries?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other modifications to map 113 that this board would like to direct?
I don't understand where that's coming from.
It came from you.
Yeah, it wasn't on 113 though, sir. It was on 203.
And it was,
I'm sorry, were we talking map 113 right now or? Yeah, no, I was talking about,
correct. And that has similarities.
yeah, well, I was talking about that because home garden in that scenario was being put in District 5. Right now,
On the other one,
yes, sir. Right now on 113, home garden is still in District 2.
correct. And the modification I made was taking that little arrow out to the west, going back to the east and having home gardens connected to Armona and Southampton. In the purple district. Then a little colorblind, so just put it in District 4.
Is that a consensus of the board? Supervisor Fagundes, do you have a consensus with making that modification to the map? Supervisor Verboen? Supervisor Peterson?
And we're not agreeing that we're changing the map, but just adding that as an alternative.
We're bringing 113 back with the requested modification of that we take that home garden area and shift it into District 4.
Well, I'm a little confused because that discussion occurred on 203B, not with 113, but I have no opposition to seeing what it might do to the map.
Okay.
I am not endorsing a change.
And I'm not asking for any endorsement at all. I'm just asking for modifications to be able to give
Just look at it.
direction to staff to be able to adjust the map.
Right now, it looks to me like the district.
And again,
District 2 has more than District 4. You take the home garden, it might make it pretty.
correct. And that's the discrepancy that I would like to see.
And Supervisor Valley?
Can you pull up the entire public 113 map, Matt, and show it as a new version here?
Show it as a new.
The way it came in.
This is how it was submitted here.
Yeah. Now click the option that shows existing supervisorial districts. You already have that. It's the same map. I just want everybody to see that. So going through all these public hearings and all the public comment, we're bringing back a map that has a possibility of getting voted in for the next 10 years. That looks exactly the same, except for the suggestion from Soup Nevs to take a look at having home garden moved into District 4, which I would be supportive of looking at that because I would only have to assume by bringing in home garden into District 4, it would up the Hispanic, the CVAP numbers on there. That's where you're coming from, Soup Nev? Yes, sir. Okay. Then I would like to see those numbers as well.
Okay.
The challenge with that is that the district already is larger than the rest of the district. So
It may
population base wise.
It may require some additional balancing, but if this is the board's direction that they want to see that adjustment to this map, then we certainly can bring the map back with that adjustment. I believe we have a consensus. If there is anybody who disagrees, would you please voice your opinion now? Okay, we have a consensus. Any other adjustments to this map? No. Any other maps that this board would like to see have brought back for the 7th? All right, I believe we have it narrowed down to 2. Thank you.
All right. Once again, I'll thank everyone for attending this evening's 5th redistricting meeting and look forward to any future maps and future decisions. With that, meeting adjourned.